Hey folks, Malforian here. This is going to be my Civ 7 reaction video. I've given it a day to think over it, I've thought about what I saw, and I've read about what a bunch of people think about it, and this is going to be my video really talking about Civ 7. At the beginning, I'm going to go through the stuff that I really liked, and then obviously the big elephant in the room is going to be the rest of the video. So the first things, what I liked, I will say the graphics look fantastic, apart from the leader graphics, we'll cover that later on, but the actual world, the units, how the actual world of Civilization looks, I think looks awesome. I almost feel like if they'd used this instead of the more cartoony graphics in Civ 6, which I will say I liked. I know a lot of people didn't, but I actually liked them in Civ 6, but I will say I think if these graphics had been the Civ 6 graphics, the people that couldn't get past the more cartoony, in a way, world that had, I think would have enjoyed Civ 6 even more. Like I say, it didn't affect me. I actually really liked how Civ 6 looks. Even the leader graphics I liked all of Civ 6 how it looked, but I will say I do like how Civ 7 looks. I will say as well, the narrator choice is awesome. Yes, another Game of Thrones, but Brienne of Tarth is here as the narrator. I think it's a fantastic choice. Not one I would have thought of myself, but definitely on board for that. I think it's going to be awesome. And then outside of that, I think just some of the mechanics that they brought in, getting rid of workers, I will agree with most people. Workers became very micromanaging, and because they only had limited charges, they were kind of stressful to use in a way. It depends how much you're actually kind of min-maxing the game, but they were kind of annoying to build and then have to continuously replace and all those kind of things. So I can see why they got rid of them. I think in my pre-announcement what we might see video, I think I even said in that one that we would probably see the end of workers just because how they worked could get rolled into something else. And as we've seen with Civ 7, those kind of actions are now done at the city level. I think that works quite well. And we'll see, obviously, once we get our hands on it. I say that because I'm not one of the content creators who has got to play this game. A lot of people did, but unfortunately not myself. So yeah, in the background, I'm probably just going to put some of the trailer footage and the reveal video as well, as long as Firaxis don't claim it. Do you know what? Let's just get into the most contentious part of it, and that is the ages and the civilization and the leader system. That's going to be the bulk of this. It's not going to be a very long video, but I did want to talk about it. So what do I think of that system? I'll be honest, I really don't like it, and it's really kind of put me off playing it. Now, I will say I'm definitely going to play it. Of course, I've played every Civ game since Civ 1. I've played Colonization, all the different spin-offs and things like that. I love Civilization. It's one of my favorite games still. Even though I've moved on to more Paradox games, I've still got that place in my heart for Civ because it is one of the first games I ever played, and I've just always kind of enjoyed it. So I'll definitely be playing it, but I do think the reveal of how the ages and leaders work, I just don't know about it. It leans way too much into that kind of Humankind gameplay. I know that's a bit of a hot take that everyone's got at the moment, but it really did remind me of Humankind. Even some things from Millennia. Now, I liked Millennia, but I think they had some issues around how those systems work. And I think how it looks to be shaping up in Civ 7 is kind of a weird mixture of those two. Rather than it being like an evolution of Civ, it almost looks like the teams kind of looked around and thought, oh, that's a cool system from this game. That's a cool system from this other one. We'll take them into here. Now, I know that isn't probably how it actually worked out. It's just coincidence that other games do look to have these systems. You know, we all know that games copy from each other or take ideas, but it's just kind of weird that the most kind of pushback on systems are from systems that have come from not other games, but you can see how other games that had that system have not been received well. And that would be Humankind. I think for the most part, I think Humankind was okay. I didn't enjoy playing it. Now, that is mostly because of the UI. And that is something else, funnily enough, that from Civ 7, what we've seen so far, I'm not really a huge fan of the UI either. We'll get into that in a second as well. But yeah, the ages and the leaders and the cultures. Now, if you're not aware, if this is your first kind of knowledge of Civ 7, I'm not sure where you've been for the last 24 hours, but how it works in Civ 7 is you pick a leader, and then you stay as that leader. So say you're Cleopatra, and then you pick a culture basically in each of the ages. So there's 3 ages, the Age of Antiquity, the Age of Exploration, and then the Modern Age. And in the first age, the Age of Antiquity, you could be Cleopatra of Egypt. Now, when that age ends, you no longer play as Egypt. You move into a different nation that is exclusive to that age as well. So Egypt, you can play in the first age. In the next one, there'll be different options depending on how you've played in the first stage. I think the ones they've shown off in the video is like Songhai, there's the Mongols, and I think there was another one they showed off. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think there was another one that was shown in some videos. But they're the 3 that we saw, and then you could choose one of them depending on if you'd met the requirements for each one. And then when the next age starts, you change into that culture. And then the same thing happens when you move to the modern age. You get another set of options and you choose which one you want to be. You don't continue playing as Egypt at all. And some nations you can't start the game as. So like the Mongols, Songhai, we know America is in it. I presume they're going to be a modern age one. Now, they did say they have actually split it out, so you can play the game in chunks. You can play the first age, the middle age, or the last age separately. Or you can play like a mega campaign, I guess you want to think about it, all the ages together and progress through them in that manner. And I will say, I think similar to quite a lot of players, I'm not really down for how this works. I don't know. Civilization as a series, I've always looked at it as you play a nation and you have one leader. I know that changed later on where you can have multiple leaders. You can choose which one you want to play as for that nation, things like that. But I've always seen it as that game. And I know they always try reinvent the game slightly with each edition. They've done that with everyone. Well, ever since the first one, really. Every game has had something different. We went from squares to hexes. We've gone from no districts to districts. We've gone from full workers to workers with charges to no workers now. All these kind of changes to kind of freshen it up a little bit, bring new ideas, bring some changes to it so it doesn't just feel like you're playing the same game every time. So I can kind of see why they did this. I think they wanted to kind of like change up the way the game plays. And also, if you think about it historically, it does kind of make sense. Not having the same ruler all the time, but the kind of like flow of civilizations. You have the Egyptians, then they kind of fell out from power, and then another nation would have taken their place, and then that one fell out of power, and another nation took their place, or something like that. I think I can see why they thought this was a good idea, and maybe it is going to be a good idea. Like I say, when I actually play the game, I might be like, okay, this works fine. My initial impressions were wrong. I'm always open-minded with that kind of stuff, but from what I can see, like I can see why they thought this was a way to go. But I just kind of fundamentally disagree as a Civ game. It's weird, actually. I was thinking about this last night, and I was like, well, if they'd done it as like a spin-off game, like Civ Revolutions or something like that, or Civ Retold, or some other name, I probably wouldn't have been as annoyed about it. I did think then, like, well, it's just a name. It doesn't really matter. But I don't know, in my head, it just makes a difference. I'm not sure why, and that's probably a problem with me rather than the actual game itself, but for me, as a mainline Civ game, it just doesn't really fit. Like I say, they always change things up, but playing as one Civ all the way through is like the thing that Civ is known for. It's funny because I think Civ 6 tagline was, can you stand the test of time? And then in Civ 7, you can't because you play a different culture every time. It's kind of funny. I know it isn't exactly a perfect kind of replacement, but it's kind of funny that the last game was all about, can your Civ survive? And this one, you are playing a Civ, but your culture changes every time. And I don't know, it's just weird. Like, even looking at the initial ones, playing as, like, Cleopatra of the Mongols, I don't know, for some reason, it just doesn't fit as a Civ game for me. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I've seen a lot of kind of feedback in both directions. I think a lot of the sentiment, at least online, and as we know, the online sentiment isn't representative of actual players for the most part. But I know a lot of the feedback has been, like, I'm not sure if this is, like, the right way for it to go, because this is how it works in Humankind in a way, and I think one of the problems Humankind had was that it made nations not feel like permanent when you were playing it. You didn't come up and say like, oh, I'm playing against the French, and even if they didn't play in a French style, you were still fighting the French all the time. And I don't know, I think that helps you kind of play out your own stories in a game, even though it isn't really a story builder like Crusader Kings or something like that. I think it helped make campaigns be more memorable, whereas I think now it's going to be like, oh, I'm playing against Benjamin Franklin of the Mongols, and it's just, yeah, that doesn't seem right. That seems like something a mod would do rather than the actual main game. Like I say, though, I'm going to give it a try. The one other thing I will say as part of this is the character portraits. I hope they get an update before launch. Like, I'll give anything the benefit of the doubt, but some of these portraits look really bad. I'm not sure what's really going on. I know they probably wanted to get away from the cartoony-looking ones. I didn't have a problem with that, as I said. I think they've gone for more realistic, but there's just something about them. They look like Uncanny Valley versions of characters, especially the Augustus one. Just looks weird, but like I say, a little bit of time before launch, so they will probably see some improvements. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about, like I say, just a really quick video giving my kind of like initial thoughts, is the UI. I'm not sure what's going on with the UI. I did a tweet about this, or an X about it, whatever you want to call it these days. And the UI is just weird. I'm not sure what's going on. Like, for a series of games, it's always, I think, had pretty good UI. I really like the UI in 6. I like how it looks like a parchment in places, and everything just looks like it's a Civilization UI. I don't know really how to explain it, but it looks good. It looks like you're playing a historical game. The problem is, I think from what I've seen so far with Civ 7 is they've gone into this trap that a lot of video games have, a lot of companies have now, of making everything look like really minimalist, and I don't mind that. I actually really like minimalist UIs and things like that. I don't know, there's just something about the UI, there's a lot of space in it. I saw a video yesterday talking about the science trees and things like that. Like I say, I've not played it, so I don't know exactly what it looks like, but they were saying in the science tree, it's like really like wide open. There's a lot of space in the UI. All the icons are like different shades of grey or like weird colours. It's not as vibrant, again, as Civ 6 was. And everything's just kind of a bit of a like muddled mess. And from what we've seen in the videos they have released officially, I kind of get that opinion as well. Just something looks slightly off about it. Now, I know they're launching it on consoles and PC, I think on the same day. I do believe that was announced. And I wonder if they've done it like this because then it can scale between the different UI sizes. If you're playing it on a PlayStation, you're just playing on a normal TV, you're playing on a PC, you're playing at higher resolutions. I wonder if they've come at this one much more thinking like, well, we're going to make this for consoles and PC, so we've got to make the UI a lot easier to control with a controller and a mouse and a keyboard, and we don't want to like retool it to work on these different formats, so we're just going to design it in one system. And that is why the UI, I think when it gets up to the larger resolutions, just looks really kind of empty in certain areas. You'll see if you watch the reveal video, especially around selecting the civilizations and selecting some other things, there's just really like lots of gaps in the UI and things are kind of small when there's loads of space for it to be in. Like I say, this is all work in development. I'm sure they'll make improvements to it before it launches. But I think as like an initial impression when you're doing your reveal video, it just looked a little bit weird. That's all I can say about it. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. There was just something about the UI. It just looks kind of dull and nothing really exciting going on with it. But anyway, that is my personal taste. I'm sure some of you think differently. And with that, that's going to be the video for today. Like I said, I just wanted to put out my initial thoughts about it. This is like the 5th version of this video I've done. I didn't want to bash it too much because until I get to play it myself, I don't want to say like, oh, this is awful. I don't want to play it. Like I say, I've got reservations about how the systems look like they're going to work, but maybe when I play it, I'll enjoy it and think, oh no, this actually works quite well. It's fine, actually. At the end of the day, it's still enjoyable. So I didn't want to be bashing the game for like 10 minutes. I wanted to give like a little bit really of like a leveled look at it and just one of these rambling Malforian videos that you get every so often on the channel. So anyway, if you've enjoyed the video, hit that like button. If you are new here, I cover a lot of Paradox games. Crusader Kings 3 has got landless gameplay coming soon, which looks crazy. We've got EU5 doing some crazy announcements as well in their dev diary, so do follow along on the channel. Hit subscribe if that's your kind of thing. I do obviously cover other historical strategy games as well, but we'll leave it there, and I'll see you in the next one.